All right, so we're going to be talking about some Dark Dimension 6, and if you're playing out for your first run here, one of the best characters that you can bring in right now in Marvel Strike Force, and I got my guy, that you do this every couple months or so, right, where you talk about the best in class, right, for Dark Dimension. So I figured, man, I got to pull you in, Pathfinder, man. By the way, before we get into it, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I like your list so far, so I can't wait to kind of get into it, for the viewers here to kind of be able to help out these players to figure out what's the most efficient way to go about doing it, because you did take that in consideration. What is not going to burn too much on your gear. You're not using too many of a certain particular type. So I think this is a pretty efficient list that we're going to be going through here. So let's start off with the first section, the non-legend. Well, of course, you have non-restricted for the first few nodes, but then once you get to that first section that is restricted, it's your non-legendary global. So let's talk through what are the best characters here and maybe some kind of secondary options that you can mention.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, global has been for a while. I call it the Apocalypse show. Now I know there's a lot of characters that have come out since Apocalypse has come out.
Yeah.
And that really, to me, doesn't change the fact that he's still a top 5 character in the game. And so going after him, bringing into Dark Dimension, and any Dark Dimension that you can, is going to be beneficial to you because of just the way his kit works and how good he is. The ult, when he's empowered, or Big Boy APOC is what we call him, when he uses that ult, and then he can just absolutely nuke somebody. That's always super helpful. His special being like a health redistribute for himself. Like he's the guy that you take for Dark Dimension 6 Global, and that really hasn't changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then I have this feeling that Black Knight is going to become the other staple character that you will want to take to Dark Dimension 6. Now, I don't know if that necessarily means that he's going to be like so good in Dark Dimension 6 that he just is a must-have. Yeah. But I think the character in general is going to be very good for a long time. Right. And so when you have a character like this come into the game, it just immediately becomes like a front runner for taking into Dark Dimension because he's so good.
Right. And with Dark Dimension, we've been saying this really probably since Dark Dimension 4, that really ideally you want to bring in characters not specifically to be able to beat Dark Dimension. You want to bring in characters that you're going to be using in other areas of the game that's going to benefit you by having that higher gear, the higher levels on them. So that's really what you want to consider when you're bringing in characters for Dark Dimension. So I think with Black Knight being the current arena meta now, the arena meta, there's so many different comps now that you can use, even with Black Knight being introduced. But because he is an arena character, he is going to be a character that I think you're going to start to see a lot on Cosmic Crucible. I'm going up against a matchup against a Black Knight in Cosmic Crucible right now. So good in war. I think good value is there by bringing in a character like Black Knight. But what would you say are the next couple characters that, if you were to fill out that 5-person team, who would be the next 3 characters, including Black Knight and of course Apocalypse? Yeah,
so you have you kind of have all of these current raid meta teams, that being Extreme. There's a lot of global characters there. Pegasus, there's also a lot of global characters there. Yeah. You also have other Out of Time members that you're going to end up pairing with Black Knight in a lot of scenarios. And then for me, Spider Weaver is still a standout character, even for how old she is, even though she's not, arena meta anymore. Yeah. She's still very ingrained in the Cosmic Crucible meta. She still has stuff as a part of her kit that really help in Dark Dimension. So that ultimate, not only being a stun, but gives her charges. Her special is a health boost. She heals herself, and then the basic is also really good as well for removing negative effects. So she's just a really good character overall. Definitely one that I would encourage anybody to take, and she's not super expensive.
Yeah, from what I can see here. Now, if you're probably running into issues where maybe for your other sections you have too many Mystic characters, then there's some options that you have available, like you mentioned. There is Gambit being a part of that Extreme X-Men team, that raid team. And he's just does a lot of damage, right? Also the outer turn damage too that you're getting from him that can help to kind of peel off some characters. Doom still seems to be someone that's relevant, right? To them anywhere. He may not necessarily be. I don't know if he's still a top 10 character per se. Yet we can debate that, but still a very good plug and play character for a lot of people. And like you said, Nightcrawler, Captain Carter, and Captain America here. You're just going to get value out of these other characters outside of the game. So these are some options that you have available here. So that's what we recommend for global. Now let's talk a little bit here about. So where are we going to go into now? I'm going to go in Cosmic, right? So let me peel this off here. So let's get rid of global. We don't want to see the global characters anymore. Let's go into Cosmic. So these are the top tier options. Now I think pretty much we agree that it's basically 2 characters and then others, right? It's really Kang involved.
Yeah, and you could make the argument that it's Kang, Vol, and Kestrel.
Yep.
I think that that's a solid argument for sure, and I think Kestrel is just very much. They've kind of proven that they're going to keep a lot of these original characters alive by reworking them, making them last longer. So I'll be interested to see what happens with like a character like Vol.
Yeah.
But Kang and Vol are absolutely going to carry you in Cosmic. It's just about who else should you take along with the ride. And I think, like you said before, it just comes down to choosing characters that are going to have longevity, choosing characters that you're using a lot. And to me, I think there is a character like that now, and that's Void Knight.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
I think with his ult, clearing all of those positive effects, flipping them rather, and ability blocking. He's got a energy steal that used to make Star-Lord T'Challa a reasonable character to take in previous Dark Dimensions. Crazy to think that it's been that long, but he's a fantastic character.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Once again, I mean, he's so plug and play now in Crucible. Of course, now he's primarily a lot of people are just using him with his team in Crucible. Obviously, raids. And of course, the arena meta, he's still a part of the arena meta there. So I think a good investment in terms of your character that you're going to be able to get, long-term efficiency for. This was a question that I wanted to ask you was Dormammu. You said no on Dormammu because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, no, why not Dormammu? I want to bring in Dormammu. But why would you recommend, not bringing in him?
I think when you look at your first run, you want to take as little of the most expensive characters as possible.
Right.
In global, we already have one, and that's Apocalypse being the most expensive you can get on the mutant side. Dormammu is in the same boat, but with Mystic. And there's a lot of really good Mystic characters in this game, and they're going to be, included like in the next section, not to get too far ahead.
Yeah.
And then, the other argument I see a lot is, well, what about, Dark Dimension, 7? And, my comeback to that is we're not there yet. It's still not in the game. We have no idea what that's going to look like, and is he actually going to be needed or not? But I think for a first run, it's just a lot. It's a lot of investment for that first run, and you can get through without him just fine.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. So then after Cosmic, we're going to talk a little bit here about City. Now, City, there's not a lot of characters per se, but you have all the characters that you need. They're very much available for you. They're not too expensive, at least some of them on gear, right? And we're going to talk about these top 5 characters here. So from my understanding, it's pretty much the Robbie show and the Hard Light show, right? Essentially in these City nodes.
Honestly, it's really just the Robbie show. Yeah. And you can add Vulture to that because when Robbie kills people, it's going to speed up your Vulture and it's going to allow him to go more.
Yeah.
And so you have this kind of combo of stacking bleeds. So characters to choose from with City is, to pair with Robbie, putting bleeds on, and then characters that are just going to, in general, give you, some control over the nodes to help Robbie do his thing is really what it's all about.
Yeah, you mentioned added in some of the other Sinister Six characters here. It included, like, for instance, yes, we talked about Vulture, but we talked about Kraven, talked about Lizard. Mm-hmm. Now, Kraven is a little squishy, and of course, Lizard's going to taunt, so he's going to get picked off a little bit here too. But Hard Light will she's amazing, tank, right? So she's going to be able to stay up for quite a while here. So it's really just like you said, bringing in some other support characters, keeping some of the damage away from Robbie, and allowing Vulture to kind of pick people off as well whenever Robbie can essentially pick those characters off. But is there any other than this top 5 here that you'd probably recommend? It's probably what other Sinister Six characters, or if you can squeeze in maybe like another like Hive Mind character. I know you mentioned that you had brought in Firestar for your first run, but that's not something that you would recommend, for anybody else to do, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the other city choices, it kind of comes down to like, where do you enjoy parts of the game, right? So are you a big Crucible player? Then Firestar may be a really good choice. Sure. If you're really into war, then Mr. Negative might be a really good choice because he's got a lot of good parts about his kit. Yeah. And then like on the other side of the coin, like if you're really into raids, like you may consider a Venom or a Carnage to help you out there. Yeah. But Venom and Carnage are very expensive bio characters. Yeah. So it's hard for me to recommend, those. I took Big Time my first time. He did fine. But I don't think he's a character that I would say is a must-have in City at this point. So I would kind of lean into like if you have the big, 3 or 4, like the Robbie, Vulture, Hardlight, Craven, you could supplement the 5th with like where do you enjoy playing the most? Yeah,
and also maybe like where do you enjoy playing most, accompanied by who might not affect you in your further nodes, like for your next section. That's got or your previous sections. Like where can you kind of spare the gear a little bit if you're looking to kind of diversify. And then we come up to our legendary section, right? Which once again, this is kind of this is pretty simple too, right? It's you're teaming it up with Doc Ock, it's Nova, Green Goblin Classic, Black Cat, and then for a 5th member, you're saying, hey, bring in Omega Red.
The nice thing about the trial characters, so Black Cat, Nova, Green Goblin Classic, is they're all very good in Dark Dimension 6. It was almost like they were designed for Dark Dimension 6, right? But I think my first run, I did Black Cat, Nova, Omega Red, and then I had Fury and Adam Warlock. And I got through fine. And now that all of the trial characters are out, I think it's just a matter of, pick the 3 trial characters plus 2 others. You could choose Doc. Again, you have to talk about how he's very expensive. For tech. But in general, there aren't a lot of tech characters in the other sections unless you do Pegasus. So it's a lot easier to stomach doing it at the end when you have it, and with Green Goblin Classic and Doc paired together, they're just so good. So
and you're gonna get some control here from Nova, of course. Also, with his ult as well, Black Cat. Omega Red can help with the ability blocks, and he can sustain himself with the drain. So there's a lot of options that you have available here. Probably, I don't see a lot of people bringing in Horseman characters as much anymore. Are there any that you would recommend that you could bring in?
The big issue is that you can only use them on the final 2 nodes.
Final 2 nodes, yeah.
And to me, they're not like so good that you have to do it. Right. I will say that having Red Hulk does make a difference on the last 2 nodes. If you can get up his battlefield effect and have that last for a long time, pairing him with APOC does work really well. But you're gonna get through it. Because you get to add APOC back in, and at least you have that. And so it's just a matter of getting through. To me, I would just do the 3 trial characters, Doc and APOC, on the last 2, and you'll get through fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there you have it, guys. That's the best that you can bring in, or that's what we'd recommend to bring in here on your first one. Of course, on your second run, then you can go back to like your full Pegasus team. Then you can bring in some of your other raid characters for your Hive Mind team. But any sort of like last recommendations that you would make here to somebody that's looking to go into their first run in Dark Dimension 6?
This is just what I always say. Do what is going to give you the most fun and enjoyment out of the game. Yeah. And you can nitpick, who you should or shouldn't take, and you can look at our recommendations and think, you know, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that. Ultimately, it comes down to, are you enjoying who you're taking? And if you are, then I think you're winning.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Pathfinder, where can they find you?
I am on Twitch and YouTube right now. It's a little sparse in how often I'm making content, but I'm trying. Hopefully, I can get more out there. But I'm in both of those places. You could find me there or on Discord.
All right, sounds good. Well, first time having you on the channel. That should not be the last time. So we'll definitely be talking to you again here. Well, hopefully you got some good value out of this. Let us know if you have any questions. Leave it in the comments. We're definitely more than happy to help. But appreciate you guys watching the channel here. And as always, guys, y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe.